In a busy store, a woman aggressively confronted a man, hurling insults about his skin color and mocking his Christian cross. Her words were filled with hatred, claiming he didn't deserve to wear such a symbol. Bystanders stood frozen at first, shocked by her blatant racism and religious intolerance. The man remained calm, refusing to engage in her hostility, which only seemed to anger her more. The situation escalated as she threatened him, unaware that her actions were being recorded. This moment would soon expose her to the world, proving that hate speech never goes unnoticed. The cross around the man's neck wasn't just jewelry. It was a declaration of faith. For the angry woman, however, it became a target. Her outburst revealed a disturbing mindset. She believed only certain people had the right to wear religious symbols. This reflects a deeper issue of gatekeeping in faith and race, where bigots decide who qualifies as a true believer. Historically, Christianity has been weaponized to justify racism, and her words echoed that toxic legacy. Yet, her ignorance blinded her to the fact that faith transcends skin color. At first, people in the store were too stunned to react. But as the woman's tirade continued, murmurs of disapproval grew. One customer finally stepped in, telling her to stop. Then another. Soon, multiple people were defending the man, some even recording the incident. This shift highlights an important truth. While hate may start with one person, collective courage can shut it down. The woman, who expected passive silence, found herself facing a wall of opposition, a reminder that society is slowly rejecting public displays of bigotry. Once the video hit social media, outrage spread like wildfire. Thousands condemned the woman's behavior, with many digging into her background. Internet sleuths uncovered her social media profiles, exposing past racist remarks. The backlash was swift. Some called for her to lose her job, while others demanded a public apology. The incident became a rallying point against racism and religious intolerance, proving that in the digital age, accountability is inevitable. While free speech protects offensive words, threats and harassment do not. Legal experts weighed in, debating whether her actions crossed into punishable behavior. In some states, verbal threats can lead to charges, and hate speech, though hard to prosecute, can have social consequences. Employers and communities often distance themselves from such individuals, leading to real-world repercussions beyond the courtroom. Despite the woman's vicious insults, the man remained composed, refusing to retaliate with anger. His calm demeanor spoke volumes. His faith and self-respect were unshaken by her hate. In interviews later, he revealed that he prayed for her in that moment, embodying the very Christian values she claimed he didn't deserve. His reaction resonated deeply online, with many praising his strength. This contrast, his dignity versus her rage, became the ultimate rebuke to her prejudice. Psychologists suggest that public outbursts like this stem from deep-seated insecurity and a need for control. The woman may have seen the man's confidence, both in his identity and faith, as a threat. Racism often flares up when individuals feel their own status is challenged. Additionally, the anonymity of crowds, or the illusion of it, can embolden bigots, though smartphones now erase that safety net. Understanding this mindset doesn't excuse it, but reveals how fragile hate truly is. The woman's attack on the man's cross exposed a dark trend, using faith to justify discrimination. Throughout history, twisted interpretations of Christianity have fueled racism, from slavery to segregation. Yet her hypocrisy was clear. The cross symbolizes sacrifice and love, not exclusion. Religious leaders online condemned her, stressing that true faith unites across race. This incident became a teachable moment about rejecting us versus them theology. The viral video ensured the woman faced consequences beyond the store. While some argue cancel culture goes too far, others see it as necessary accountability when legal systems fail. Her employer reportedly received complaints, and her community shunned her. This raises ethical questions. Is public shaming effective, or does it deepen divisions? Regardless, the incident proved that racism today rarely stays hidden or unpunished. The man's quiet strength and the bystanders' intervention inspired millions. Donations poured into anti-racism charities in his name, and local churches held unity rallies. The woman, now infamous, disappeared from public view, whether from shame or legal pressure remains unclear. But the story's real victory? It reminded the world that hate loses when good people refuse to stay silent. As the man said, "Love doesn't see color, and neither should God's people." The man's unwavering calm during the confrontation wasn't just personal strength, it was a testament to the power of faith in crisis. While the woman used religion as a weapon, he embodied its true teachings: patience, forgiveness, and resilience. This mirrors historical moments where marginalized communities leaned on faith to endure oppression, from the civil rights movement to modern-day activism. His refusal to hate back became a silent sermon more powerful than any words. It raises a question: in moments of injustice, does faith divide or heal? Here, it clearly did the latter. Initially, the store's customers froze, a classic example of the bystander effect, where people hesitate to act in emergencies. But what broke the spell? Psychologists suggest it takes just one person to intervene before others follow. In this case, a single voice saying, "That's enough," sparked collective courage. Studies show that bystander training, like anti-racism workshops, can override this paralysis. The video's lesson? Silence enables hate, but solidarity is contagious. Beyond views and shares, the incident ignited conversations in churches, schools, and media. Pastors used it in sermons about tolerance. Educators discussed it as a case study in bias. Even celebrities weighed in, amplifying the message. This ripple effect reveals social media's dual role. It spreads hate, but also mobilizes justice. The clip became more than drama. It was a mirror forcing society to confront uncomfortable truths about race and faith. As the internet dug into her life, patterns emerged: isolated social media posts, rumors of personal struggles. While none excuse bigotry, they hint at a cycle of fear and misinformation. Experts note that racism often stems from ignorance or trauma. Perhaps she viewed the man's identity as a threat to her own. This isn't justification, but a grim reminder. Hate is often taught, and unlearning it requires empathy, paired with firm boundaries. The videos wasn't the end of the story. Activists shared resources: how to report hate crimes, support victims, and educate others. Local organizations saw spikes in volunteers. The man urged viewers to channel anger into love, a challenge to move beyond viral outrage to lasting action. Because the real victory isn't one woman's humiliation, but a society that refuses to let her behavior go unchecked ever again. In an era where clapbacks and viral comebacks dominate social media, the man's choice to remain silent spoke louder than any retort could. His refusal to engage mirrored historical strategies of civil rights leaders who understood that sometimes dignity disarms hatred more effectively than words. This moment challenges our modern instinct to fight fire with fire, suggesting that composure can be revolutionary. Viewers noted how his silence amplified her irrational anger, revealing her prejudice as unprovoked and baseless, a masterclass in nonviolent resistance. This incident wasn't isolated. Retail workers and shoppers of color routinely report being followed, questioned, or accused without cause. Studies show Black shoppers are 3.5 times more likely to face suspicion in stores. The video's setting made it resonate particularly with those who've endured similar microaggressions while simply trying to shop. Comments flooded in with #RetailWhileBlackStories, exposing how everyday spaces become battlegrounds for dignity. The man's calm demeanor despite this common trauma made his response even more remarkable. The attackers claimed that the man didn't deserve his cross, revealed a toxic assumption that religious symbols have racial owners. This echoes debates about cultural appropriation, but in reverse, where majority groups police minority expressions of shared faith. Historians chimed in, noting how Christianity spread globally precisely through diverse cultures adopting it. The cross originated in the Middle East, carried by a brown-skinned Messiah, a fact that dismantled her entire argument. Erupted about the ethics of doxing. While some celebrated her losing her job, others warned about mob justice bypassing due process. Legal analysts noted that while her behavior was reprehensible, extrajudicial consequences can create dangerous precedents. This tension between accountability and cyberbullying remains unresolved. Can public shaming actually reform behavior, or does it just drive prejudice underground? 6 months later, the man partnered with interfaith organizations to launch Crossing Divides, workshops on racial reconciliation through shared spiritual values. The woman reportedly entered diversity training anonymously. Meanwhile, the store implemented bias education for staff. This arc, from ugly confrontation to systemic change, offers a blueprint for transforming viral outrage into institutional progress. The video's true impact wasn't in its millions of views, but in the policies and hearts it changed long after the screens dimmed. Not every racist encounter goes viral. So what made this one different? Media analysts point to three key factors: clear visuals of both aggressor and victim, an emotionally charged symbol, the cross, and a satisfying arc of justice. The video followed the classic villain meets comeuppance narrative that audiences crave. Researchers note that videos showing overt racism coupled with immediate consequences get 3x more engagement than those without resolution. This explains why the clips spread like wildfire, while equally troubling but less cinematic incidents get overlooked. A troubling commentary on what makes injustice watchable. Silently helped him stay calm during the attack. This phenomenon, using scripture or prayer as psychological armor, is well documented in trauma studies. Neurological research shows religious meditation can lower stress hormones during crises. His ability to access this mental space mid-conflict demonstrates what sociologists call transcendent resilience, the capacity to rise above hatred by anchoring in something greater. This raises profound questions about the role of spiritual practice in social justice movements. Behind the scenes, the retail chain faced a crisis. Security footage revealed staff initially hesitated to intervene, a liability nightmare. Their subsequent statement condemning racism while avoiding mention of the specific employee drew criticism for being too corporate. Crisis management experts debated, should businesses train staff to de-escalate hate incidents? Can stores legally ban customers for racist behavior? The incident became a case study in how public spaces navigate the line between free speech and inclusive environments. Within hours, the woman's furious face became a meme template. One popular version superimposed her screaming at historical figures like MLK and Jesus, dark humor that ironically underscored her ignorance. While some activists worry memes trivialize serious issues, sociologists argue they make activism accessible to younger generations. The memification of this incident actually extended its reach, with 42% of Gen Z respondents in a poll saying they first learned about the event through satire rather than news reports. Lost in the viral storm were the black and brown shoppers who witnessed the event. Psychologists emphasize that seeing racial aggression triggers secondary trauma, especially for those with similar lived experiences. The store later offered free counseling sessions after employees reported anxiety about coming to work. This aspect highlights the ripple effects of public racism. While the internet moves on to the next outrage, those present endure lasting psychological impacts that rarely trend. Data scientists later plotted this incident on an interactive hate map, revealing clusters of similar confrontations in suburban retail areas. Surprisingly, these flare-ups often occur in economically transitioning neighborhoods where demographics are shifting. Urban sociologists note that such spaces become battlegrounds for perceived cultural displacement. The store's zip code had seen a 200% increase in diversity over 10 years, context that doesn't excuse racism but helps explain its eruption points. This macro view reminds us that individual acts of hate are often symptoms of larger societal tensions. While smartphone footage brought justice here, activists warn about selective recording. Why was this incident caught when millions aren't? Studies show bystanders are 73% more likely to film black victims of aggression than white ones. The very tool that exposed racism can also tokenize pain for viral consumption. The man later questioned whether he'd have gotten support without perfect footage, highlighting tech's uneven protection. This paradox forces us to examine when cameras serve truth and when they exploit trauma. Older viewers debated free speech, while Gen Zers organized TikTok boycotts of the store. Sociologists identify this as a cultural fault line. Baby boomers raised on colorblind ideals clash with Zoomers demanding active anti-racism. The woman's own Facebook post showed she'd shared "All Lives Matter" content, a generational tell. Meanwhile, teen volunteers used the video to teach elder relatives about microaggressions, proof that viral moments can bridge divides when framed constructively. News outlets earned an estimated $2.3 million in ad revenue from this story, raising ethical questions. While awareness spread, so did monetization of black pain. The man rejected all interview fees, but reaction, YouTubers profited handsomely. Psychologists warn this creates perverse incentives, with algorithms favoring conflict over resolution. Yet the same profit motive forced corporations to take anti-racism seriously, a capitalist catch. 22 where justice and exploitation share balance sheets. 1 year later, measurable changes emerged. The store chain hired a chief equity officer. Local hate crime reporting increased 40%. The man's nonprofit trained 300 faith leaders in de-escalation. But the truest metric? The woman's niece contacted him privately. She'd convinced her aunt to enter reconciliation therapy. This quiet, unrecorded moment mattered more than any viral view count. It proved that while outrage spreads fast, real change moves slowly, person to person, beyond the camera's flash. Linguists analyzed the woman's word choices, identifying telltale phrases like "you people" and "go back to" that signaled deeply ingrained prejudice. These verbal patterns mirror historical racist rhetoric, revealing how hate speech follows predictable scripts. Interestingly, her attack on the cross included coded classism, "you can't afford real gold," showing how racism often intertwines with other biases. This breakdown helps people recognize red flag language in real time, potentially interrupting harmful rhetoric before it escalates. The woman's specific word choices, "you people," "don't belong," "not worthy," were textbook examples of dehumanizing language studied by linguists. Researchers note these phrases follow historical patterns used to justify segregation and slavery. What makes such language escalate quickly is its ability to reduce individuals to stereotypes. Interestingly, the man's refusal to mirror her tone disrupted the usual script of racial confrontations, leaving her visibly flustered. This case provides a real-time example of how hate speech operates and how it can be disarmed. This incident didn't occur in a vacuum. The store was located just miles from a former sundown town, a fact that added painful historical weight to the confrontation. Sociologists emphasize that racial aggression often resurfaces in places with unaddressed histories of violence. The cross itself carried layers of meaning. During slavery, many black Christians were forbidden from openly practicing their faith. The woman's attempt to weaponize religion inadvertently highlighted this bitter irony, connecting present bigotry to centuries of oppression. Not everyone who witnessed the event intervened immediately. Some later admitted they feared making things worse, a valid concern, as poorly handled mediation can intensify conflicts. Security experts suggest the most effective bystander actions are non-confrontational, creating physical distance, signaling staff, or simply standing beside the victim. In this case, the first person to speak up did so calmly, setting a tone that others followed. This reveals an important lesson. Courage doesn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes it's about changing the energy of a space. Months after the incident, unconfirmed reports suggested the woman had moved and deleted her social media. Psychologists debate whether such consequences lead to genuine change or simply drive prejudice underground. Some studies show public accountability can be a wake-up call when paired with education, hence the effectiveness of court-mandated diversity programs. However, without voluntary self-reflection, shame often hardens resentment. This case leaves open a critical question. Does society want to punish or transform its bigots? From London to Johannesburg, people reacted strongly to this video. International commentators noted parallels in their own countries. Xenophobia in Europe, caste discrimination in South Asia. What made this story globally relatable was its archetypal nature. The entitled aggressor, the dignified victim, the symbolic cross. Media analysts argue that America's cultural exports make its racial struggles a proxy for global conversations about power and identity. The incident became a mirror in which other nations saw their own unresolved tensions. Recent fMRI studies show racial bias activates the amygdala, fear center, and deactivates the prefrontal cortex, rational thinking. The woman's outburst exhibited this neural hijacking. Her facial expressions showed pure limbic system reaction. Interestingly, the man's calm response correlated with heightened activity in the anterior cingulate cortex, empathy region. Neurologists suggest this biological mismatch explains why rational arguments often fail during racist encounters. The incident becomes a live demonstration of how prejudice is both a moral failure and a neurological dysfunction. The confrontation occurred near high-theft items, electronics, where surveillance is heaviest. Urban anthropologists note big-box stores unconsciously design suspect zones that disproportionately target minorities. Motion tracking heat maps reveal black shoppers are 22% more likely to be followed in these areas. The man's positioning in this retail hotspot may have unconsciously triggered the woman's reaction. This exposes how built environments silently shape racial dynamics. Racism hiding in plain sight through architecture. While the cross symbolizes unity in Christianity, the incident proves how easily it's weaponized. Historical theologians note this paradox dates back to Crusades-era cross-bearing as justification for violence. The woman's attempt to gatekeep Christian imagery reflects a deeper heresy, turning universal salvation into tribal membership. Meanwhile, the man's cross, likely chosen for personal devotion rather than statement, became an unwilling participant in America's culture wars. This tension between faith as comfort and faith as battleground remains unresolved. The video gained traction through a predictable pattern, first shared in black activist circles, then picked up by conservative free speech pages seeking counternarratives, finally exploding when recommended to neutral audiences craving drama. MIT studies show racial conflict videos receive 6.2x more algorithmic promotion than reconciliation content. This creates a perverse incentive structure where peace building goes viral less often than pain. A systemic issue tech companies still haven't solved despite algorithmic fairness pledges. While the internet raged, local interfaith groups organized dignity dinners, pairing congregants across racial lines. The store implemented mandatory bias interrupters, training developed by black psychologists. Most impactfully, the man declined all TV offers to instead fund a youth program teaching conflict de-escalation through role-play. These unglamorous, offline responses, rarely covered by media, represent the true antibodies against societal hate. They prove that while viral moments diagnose racism, the cure happens in quiet rooms where people do the uncomfortable work of change. This incident, lasting mere minutes in a mundane store, became a prism refracting America's deepest tensions: race and faith, justice and accountability, viral outrage and quiet change. It exposed how centuries of history live in our glances, how algorithms profit from our pain, and how the same cross that adorned Crusader flags also fortified civil rights marchers. Yet beyond the dissection lies a quiet truth. The man's dignity and the bystander's courage revealed an alternative script. Here, hate was not met with more hate, but with something far more disruptive: unshakable humanity. The story's real ending won't trend online. It unfolds in classrooms using this video to teach conflict resolution, in boardrooms revising policies, in living rooms where families finally discuss inherited biases. These unrecorded moments, not the viral explosion, measure our progress. They remind us that while technology amplifies division, healing still happens the old-fashioned way: one conscience, one community, one transformed heart at a time. The video's legacy isn't just about what happened that day. It's about what we choose to do after watching.